cleaning out some of the shrubbery in the aquaponics today and also planning out some of the grow beds, so I thought I'd bring you folks along for a bit of an update. I thought we'd start off up here with the fish. We'll just throw a little bit of feed in for these jade perch. It's pretty much all going to be one of the last meals for these guys because Bianca and I have decided we're going to harvest the fish from this tank over the weekend so we can get ready to split the silver perch between the two. So these guys here probably get one more feed after this and that will be it. So there will be a clip on those guys. We'll show you what sort of a harvest we get from here. I'm expecting a couple of small ones and there's definitely going to be a couple of whoppers in there as well. So we'll bring you along for a look at that harvest when it happens. So the first bed we're tidying up is this one in front of the filters. And once it's done, we'll go and tidy up the parsley bed and then I'll come through and plant out some seedlings. So just down here at the first bed, we've got a couple of bits and pieces that need to come out. We've got this lettuce, we might let it go actually and see if we can save some seeds from it. I might just nip off some of these lanky bits of celery, we don't need them for dinner. And this basil can definitely come out. I've already given a couple of the flowers a bit of a shake through the bed itself, so we'll probably end up with some Thai basil seedlings popping up. Just with this root section, just going to pull it out gently, give it a bit of a shake over the bed and try and get rid of as many of these balls as I can out of here. What I like to do with root systems like this is just leave them on the surface for a day or two, and as they dry out it's just easier to remove all the clay balls from in there. Over here on this beetroot, got a couple of old mancules we might just clear out here. So this old beetroot here is a bit of a grandmother. She's been in here for quite a few months now. We have been harvesting the smaller greens from the centre and using them in salads, but the root itself will be coming out very soon because it's got a decent bit of size on it, and Bianca and I plan on basically julienning it and turning it into fermented beetroot. We like the last lot. Probably come out early next week. We're a little bit busy this weekend. We're looking after the fish and other bits and pieces. What I might do here is also just nip off some of these charred leaves. Just helps to tidy up the bed a bit. If only we had chooks still, they'd be loving today, all these bits of greenery. In a few of these beds too, we've been getting these little fig trees pop up randomly. Now these guys here are coming from a tree a couple of yards over. The birds are eating the fruit and depositing them in the grow beds. So yeah, definitely not something I want growing in the system. What we might do is we'll go around to the other beds and clean them out just so I can work out how much space I have, and then we'll come back and plant through later. Might actually just pull out this poor underperforming lettuce. Doesn't look like it did too well, so it can go into the compost as well. And off to the next bed. Just before we start on the next bed, I just thought I'd show you the size of this beetroot. There's my hand. So I'd definitely say she's probably pushing 2 kilos or 4.4 pounds. The other plants in this bed at the front here is some perpetual spinach that could be blocking out the light to some plants that we put behind there. So I might look at snipping off one of her limbs. And just down the front here we have some oregano and some brahmi herb just down in here. So I'm not too worried about this stuff here. It'll definitely won't be an issue blocking out any sun to the plants behind it. And we also have this little beetroot here. It never really did much, to tell you the truth. It's the same age as this grandma over there, so probably pull it out at the same time and it will end up as a fermented pickle as well. This bed here we have the other perpetual spinach, but luckily this one's decided that it wants to go to seed, and we have a couple of flower spikes up there. We can actually see them popping out over the top of the shade cloth or the veggie net from the house. So I'm just going to let those guys go. Hopefully we'll be able to save some seed from them. Definitely one plant that I will be growing again and again. This one here we've been harvesting ferociously, trying to stop it from bolting to seed. I've already nipped out one little flower spike and I haven't seen any more occur, so hopefully, yeah, we'll get a few more harvests out of this one. I mean, we've already picked 3 meals this week out of this one plant, and as you can see, there's still a couple of good meals worth in there. So we knocked up a bit of a halloumi palak the other night. Halloumi is a Cypriot cheese, so very impressive plant. We've got dozens of meals off her. Just next to it we have a load of kangkong that I want to pull out. There's some seed pods on there, so I'll be saving them. If this little rosemary comes out with it, I'm not too worried. And this parsley will have to be cut back at least so we can get some sun through to the seedlings I want to plant on the back. I will be leaving 1 or 2 flower spikes on though, as I'd like to save some seeds from it. Seeds saved from plants that have acclimatized to your climate are definitely a bit of a plus. Anyway, I'm going to set the camera up and we'll start pulling out some of these plants. So there's no real, special way to do this other than grabbing on, making sure I'm not grabbing any rosemary, and pulling this old lady out. You might be able to make out down in there, we've got some compost worms in here. So I'm just going to try and coax out as much of the clay as I can. Don't really want to take too much out of the bed. Also don't want to take out too many worms. So just giving it a bit of a shake, get some more balls out, and then I'm just going to put the root mass onto this tray. And over the next few days the roots will dry off and they'll release some of those clay balls. I will need to keep an eye on any worm activity in there. I might have to do a few worm saves later on. So we've also got this little rosemary down here, but I might just leave her for now. We might pull her out a little bit later. I really need to get through this parsley before the sun sets this afternoon. And there's a few other plants around the other side I think I need to tidy up as well. So yeah, onto the parsley. So as you can see, this parsley is a pretty impressive plant. So I'm just going to go in there and nip off individual flower spikes until I can get to the heart of it. She's sticking out over the walkway here, so that also poses a few other problems. As you can see, there's a lot of organic matter here. None of this will be going to waste, it'll all be going through the composting systems we have here. So as you can see, that's opened up this bed a whole lot. Where you can actually see the mushroom herb in here now. Some of it's a little bit pale in colour, the leaves, so it must have been struggling to get some light. These plants here though, even though they've been pretty much well shaded, I am going to give them a bit of a prune back as well. And I've noticed a load of snails in here. So these little fellas will definitely be getting the crunch. So we've got some mushroom herb around the other side of the grow bed, and it does tend to take over a bit, so might even consider pulling these plants out. I accidentally broke off the last of the parsley. Well, there you go, that's a bit of a shame. But anyway, got to look on the bright side of things. Look at all the real estate it's opened up for me. So another huge snail. See you fella. Might as well take off this parsley now. Don't know if you can make that out or not, but the root system of this parsley actually looks like it's filled with a whole heap of little black soldier fly larvae. It's also hollow and rotted out in the centre, so no wonder those branches came off so easy. So this root system looked like it was well and truly rotted. Probably make out those larvae down in there, so probably is a good thing that we get rid of her. And you can probably make out the mat of roots here. Yeah, she well and truly needed to come out of the bed, I think. So this job here might take a little bit longer than I planned. A little compost worm down in there. So I suppose I better get to it. So I dare say this root system, yeah, is pretty extensive. It goes all the way back here. So I dare say if this plant was left in here much longer, we definitely would end up with some issues trying to get water to flow through. So I'm actually going to get the garden fork in here and try and lever this out. As you can see, there's a pretty extensive root system in here. That's impressive. Look at that. Absolutely phenomenal. And as you can see, this water down in here is pretty murky as well. So that'd be bits of solids that make it through the radial flow filter, as well as waste from the compost worms in here. As they defecate, they'll be dropping waste into the system as well. So anyone who tells you that worms get all the solids out of the system, they don't understand that worms poop as well. So what I've got here is a large root pouch. These things are fantastic for putting clay balls in that are wet because they're porous and all the water will leak out. Put these clumps in. Try and shake as much clay out as I can, of course. And hopefully worms too. You'll find the roots will always grow towards the water inlet as well, I've found. So there's going to be compost worms in here, but a fair few are dropping out. These compost worms are like snakes. So this mushroom herb, I think I might retire her as well, because I have some growing in the other bed over there, And I'm thinking all my bushy plants that like to grow everywhere are probably better off kept over there because they tend to block out lights for the smaller ones behind them. So this is a bit of prime real estate because the sun sort of comes in from this angle. So we'll keep this open for my quick moving crops. So as you can see, this plant here has a pretty impressive root system on her as well. Loads of compost worms down in there. And again, she can just go down into this bag and I'll collect the clay balls from these roots as they dry out. I've just unearthed a little sweet basil over the back here. So I think this is pretty much all it for the grow bed. There's a few more little bits of organic matter I could pick out if I was being really pedantic. I suppose the compost worms have got to eat something, don't they? Anyway, I got to drop one of Kira's friends home and I'll come back and we'll start planting these guys out. So I've got a couple of different starts. I've got some beetroot. They're just using up some old seeds we had laying around. So these guys here are going to go into the parsley bed. And I've also got some beans. Not all of these did that crash hot, so I'll probably only end up saving 3 of these plants and they'll just go into this bed here. And then one of these cucumbers I got from Ruben, thank you very much mate, will be going over here sort of between the lettuce and the bell siphon, and I'll be trellising it up using some wire and then probably growing it out that way over the top of the bed. So we'll start with these cucumbers. All I'm going to do is just grab this piece of 100mm pipe, use it to dig out some clay here. Whoops. Find a couple of worms along the way, sorry fella. Grab my 2 healthiest looking seedlings, just tease them out of the punnet, and I'm just going to wash the roots off in that water there. Pop them in the pipe and lift the pipe, and then backfill around it. So out of these 2 seedlings, I'll save the healthiest looking one and the other one will be sacrificed to the compost heap. So these beans, the same deal. There's 4, so I might plan out 2 together and the others separate. So I'm just going to pop out 1 here, just behind this celery and beetroot. Might pop the cell that has 2 plants in there. Just give it a bit of a rinse and pop it in. Just pull the plant up a little bit and then backfill around it. It will get a fair bit of shade here from that beetroot, but as I said, that beetroot will be coming out in the coming week. We'll pop another one, maybe just down here on this side of this lettuce. There we go, there's 3 beans planted out. So I've just turned the water back on into the grow bed. It's just at a small trickle, and what that'll do is it'll allow the water, fresh water, to come through and without drawing too many solids through, down the standpipe and into the sump. So it's been running for a while now, and as you can see, that water's pretty clear. This clay media does act as a pretty good solids media with all the little gaps in there for it to deposit out. So without the big draw of that standpipe being on there and a siphon being initiated, those solids will eventually just settle out in the bottom of the bed again. So this bed here is just going to be topped up with some clay just to make up for the clay that was taken out with the roots of the other plants. So there we go. And into this bed here up the back, I'm just going to pop a couple of sweet basil. We've got an old one over here, but I thought I'll pop a couple of fresh plants in. So I actually went to the hardware and got these guys. So my basil didn't take off in time. So, and I do have 1 more of these guys. There we go. There's probably 3 or 4 plants in these plugs. So more than enough to get them started, and then I'll just thin them out at a later date. So beetroot are a cluster seed, so you normally get 2 or 3 germinating from 1 seed pod. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I'll be planting both lots into the beds, and then I'll come back at a later date and snip one out if it's not looking too healthy. But generally, if there's just 2 seedlings together, I let them go and they work themselves out. You end up with 2 decent sized beets. In aquaponics, at least in the soil, I've found they do compete against each other a little bit. So there we go. 2 beds planted out with some beans, cucumber, beetroot and basil. So just in this bed next to it, I will be popping out some lettuce next week. I want to try some rabbit ear lettuce in here. I've been told it's more heat tolerant, so we'll pop a little bit maybe up towards the back here, because it'll get shaded out by the basil once it puts on a bit of growth. One more look at the grow beds. That one there doesn't look a lot different from this side, but over there there's a big difference. You can see all the way back through to the rear grow bed. I think those beetroots should take off fine there. They're definitely going to get enough morning sunlight, and hopefully this perpetual spinach will finish flowering. We'll collect some seeds and we can knock it down. I might end up just keeping one flower spike and knock the rest off. We'll just wait and see. And I mean, this stuff over there, seriously, if you're after a very healthy green plant in your aquaponic system that's going to feed your family, 2 or 3 of these perpetual spinach and you're going to be laughing. Seriously, they grow that well in the warm climate here. So I'm pretty disappointed that last parsley branch broke off. I would have really liked to save some seed from that plant, just so, you know, we have something that is a little bit more hardier genetically for growing in our climate, but you know, them's the breaks, literally. I hope you enjoyed looking at planting those seedlings out and just a bit of a clean out of the beds. So when it comes to planting out some seeds in the system, I might pop a small little run of short carrots in there and maybe the rabbit ear lettuce that I was talking about before. I'll bring you along and I'll film that and give you a bit of a look at how I sow out seeds in the grow beds. It's pretty basic and pretty easy. I do hope you've enjoyed this little bit of a look at you know, a bit of maintenance going on in the aquaponics here. So if you haven't subscribed already, you can click on that little eggplant man down there and you'll get a notification whenever I upload another aquaponic clip or something else that's going on in the patch, one of the soil beds or building a chicken house or something along those lines. You can come along and say good day in the comments section. I do hope you're all well and happy and that your gardens and aquaponics are booming, and I'll catch you next clip. Cheers folks, have a great one. So anyone who tells you that worms get all the solids out of the system, they don't understand that worms poop as well. Everything poops. I think that's a kid's book actually.